Good morning, everybody. My name is Katie Moore, and I'm the multifamily RFP lead. And we are very excited to have you on the line today. This is our second live demo and training of the new multifamily scoring wizard. So this year, rather than doing scoring on the Excel spreadsheet that most folks are familiar with, we are going to be, we have inserted the scoring into the portal, into what is now known as the multifamily scoring wizard. We're very excited about this. Chris Larson, he is going to be doing a demo. We'll have time for questions and answers at the end. And this session will be recorded and posted to our website, so you can go back and review it at a later date. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris so that we don't lose any time doing the demo this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Larson. I'm a software development manager from the IT department here at Minnesota Housing. I'm pleased to announce the scoring wizard for 2021. We're very excited about this. There will be questions at the end. I just remember I'm from the IT department, so I'm not programmed. So that would be those questions can be answered by Katie. I'll be answering questions about how the system works, how the application process works, and how the scoring wizard does work. So without further ado, I'm going to do a little presentation, show you what you're going to see today, and then I'll go into a live demo. So first off, like we talked about, multifamily scoring wizard, new to 2021. Now it's live today. So the agenda for today, we're going to do an overview of features and functions, do some general instructions, just kind of walk you through all the different aspects of it in the PowerPoint presentation. Go in there, do a live demo. There's always the risk of a live demo. We are doing a test environment, but knock on wood, we've had a lot of projects spun up so far and a lot of score sheets spun up without any issues. So hoping no issues today, but and then after that, we'll open up for questions. And if you have any questions, you can type those and send those, and I believe Katie will be getting those and she can moderate any of those questions. So first off, like I said, we're excited to announce a new scoring wizard for the self-scoring worksheet that all applicants will use for the 2021 consolidated RFP. This is a new tool. If you've used it in the past, it's new. You have not used it. Obviously, it is not new. It's going to replace the Excel version of the Excel self-scoring worksheet. And it does say live as of yesterday. That's what we used for the last presentation. It was done the day after we went live. It's actually been a couple of weeks now. This is different if you've used this score sheet in the past. So in the past, it's more of a combination of entering data and claiming your points. The new way of doing this is you're going to enter project data. We're going to validate that data, and then the system's going to do the calculations for you and award points and allow you to claim those. It's also going to do some rule validation to make sure that you can only claim what you're qualified for, and make sure that you're not claiming multiple categories or too many units. So I'm going to show you how that works. Once you've done that, similar to what you've done in the past, Excel, you're going to have to submit your score. So this is another step. Prior to this, you would upload the self-scoring worksheet Excel version to your application checklist, and then submit that all together. Now you're still going to be submitting the application checklist, but you're also going to be submitting your score sheet. So you'll see that you're going to get reminders, but just knowing those are two different things today. And then ultimately do an internal review, which is on our side. So overall, the new system, this wizard, is going to guide you through the scoring process. So you're going to enter information about your project, and it's going to identify points that you're eligible for based on information provided. What's really nice about this is it allows you to create test scenarios. So if you're not sure how claiming points, claiming certain criteria will impact your score, you're able to create different test scenarios and take a look and see how you can best get the most amount of points. Cool thing about this, and I'll show you, once you've created one, you can easily just clone that. So it's going to give you exact copy. You're going to name it something slightly different. Maybe it's 9% versus 4%. You'll go through, make those modifications, the differences, and then you'll see how the points differ. You're able to create up to 4 versions One of those being that you need to submit. I'll show you how that works. Nice thing is, another feature reduces duplicative data entry. So we've reduced the number of times you have to enter units. So if you make any changes, you're going to enter it on one time. So if you make that change, it's going to affect all your calculations. But it's going to reduce errors because you're not going to. More times you enter data, the more likelihood that there's going to be duplicative, error-prone data. Auto-calculate formulas in real time to reduce complexity and errors. So it's a big problem. Like, not sure which value to include in your denominator. Is it assisted units? Is it total units? Well, our scoring wizard knows, so we've set up those rules. Wizard does the calculation for you, and then provides easy access to scoring resources. I'm going to show you what this means, but links to the scoring guide and other resources throughout the scoring wizard in real time. So, like I said, I'm going to walk through real quick. General instructions. You're going to first log into the portal. If you don't have an account, you're going to have to request an account, and then you go to our website. You're going to create a new, or you're going to navigate to an existing project. It's pretty simple. You're going to click the scoring wizard button. The first time you do this, first and only, for each project, you have to accept the terms and conditions. So if you choose accept, you'll continue with the wizard. If you do a decline, you'll immediately exit it. So please review that. But if you do accidentally hit decline, you can go back there and accept them. So once you've done that, it's not going to ask you again. The first time you go in there, you can create a test scenario or a final version, or select existing. But at the first time, you're only going to see test or final version here, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can switch these at any time. And then there's a couple different ways to navigate through the wizard. There is a handy dandy tap across the top. And there's also previous next buttons. And I'm going to show you the benefits of when to use those in the live demo. So there's a couple different ways that we provide validation. In-cell validation. So it reviews data entry validation errors. So what's going to happen here? So assisted units is based off of total units. So if you've entered 20 units as your efficiencies, you clearly can't enter more units of that for assisted. So you can't have more assisted than total. So it's going to flag you for that. As you can see, efficiencies, I clearly entered 20 for the total units, 20 for 3-bedroom, 20 for 4-bedroom. And so once I try to enter that, either an error or maybe there are more, that would just force you to either go back to either change it here or go back and change it on your total validation or your total units page. Second place, cross-question validation. So as you can see in this example, HPH, high priority homeless, and people with disabilities at 11 units too high. So the combination of those two is too high based off of what you entered. So it's going to force you to go back. You can leave the scoring wizard, or you can click the change values button. It's going to put you back to that page. You can make that 6, and once you've done that, you can move on from this page. In addition to that, there's also a review claim point tab validation page. So this looks for missing required data, for instance. So just for ease for use, we're not going to require you to enter all the data on every single page as you go through it. So you can actually, there are a couple places you actually have to enter the data first, but otherwise you can navigate through the entire wizard just to see what's there and move back and forth. But once you go to submit and review, it's going to go back and check to make sure you've entered all the required data. This is also going to check for any of the changes you made and all the downstream effects. So if you, for instance, and I'm going to show you in real time, but if you were to move back to the Scoresheet setup page, once you got to here, which is the first tab, and you made a change to total units, well, that affects a number of things throughout the wizard of what you can and can't do. So if you go all the way to this page, you skipped all those errors. So we suggest you go through, if you make any changes earlier in, especially to total units or assisted units, you're going to want to use the save and next buttons as you go through, and then it's going to capture all those. If you go all the way to the end, if you're not, it will flag you, as you see here, and then you'll have to go back and do those changes. But I will show you that during the live demo. Once you've entered your data, you're going to review the awarded points. You can adjust the data if need be. to see how it affects your score, and then you'll be able to claim or not. So just because you get points awarded for rental assistance, there are obviously strings attached with that. Recording you have to do with certain stipulations. So if you weren't going to take that, that is where on this page, even though you got awarded it, you could click the button not and take those points. Also, it may give you the options of preservation rental assistance. You may want to decide, since you can't take both those together, you may want to say, well, rental assistance gives you more points, so I'm not going to take the preservation. And I'll show you that in real time as well. Once you're done with that and you've cleared all your errors, you're going to come to this page, and there's now a verify. So this verify is going to go through and check everything to make sure that all the points you claimed, everything you've done. If we're not requiring files to be uploaded, you're going to still upload your files, your supporting documentation to your checklist. But if we were to do that here, this would check to make sure you've uploaded all the necessary files. So verify only will just give you that sense of, oh, got everything ready to go. If you follow the wizard, by the time you get to the end, you shouldn't get any errors. It should capture those. But if you have skipped around, made some changes, this is going to capture any of those. If you do have your final version selected, you can also do verify and submit, which is just doing the same thing as verify only, but also prompt you to say, are you ready to submit? I'll show you how that works. If it does find any errors, it's going to show them on a page like this, and then you'll go back and make those necessary changes until all the validation errors are clear. So that is the high-level overview of 10,000 view. Now I'm going to go in and showing in real time. So this is what you should be seeing once you have your account. If you you're going to see funding rounds and you're going to see projects. The only difference is that you can see it's a test account for me because it has this red across the top. That's really the only difference that you're going to see. If you have currently projects in the works, you can go into your projects. This scoring wizard is new and is only used currently for the 2021 RFP. As you can see, we've created a lot of tests. There's been a lot of testing involved with this process. It's only going to be used for the 2021. So, well, we're going to take one and we're going to go from scratch because there is also a new apply for funding wizard that we've created. So you're going to see some open funding rounds here. So you're going to see more in here to the test environment, but you're going to go to the 2021, review the information with the funding round, and then over here, same way as you've done before. If you've done this, you're going to hit the apply for funding button, and that's going to launch the first of two wizards. So you want to fill out all the information on this page. So I'm just going to, you can enter your project name. So name is project formerly known as, not something. So you get property number if known. So I'm going to say this is new. I'm new to this process, so I don't have that. Previously applied for funding or received funding? Nope. This is a dual application. So this is a dependent question column. So if you choose yes, it's going to give you two values. So primary proposal type. If you choose not a dual application, it's only going to give you one. So I'm going to say yes, it is, and then 9% housing tax credits, and then I'm going to say sorry about that. It's my dog. Beauty of working from home. So once I've identified that, I'm going to go to the street. And I'm going to enter my information. I'm going to this is going. So one of the things I want to mention, there are some help tabs here. If you ever want to know more information what you're entering, there should be some helpful information there. Dakota, so this is it looks like a free-form field. It is, but it does make sure that it's going to check against actual counties. The only one that is kind of weird is St. Louis. So, and we actually put that on there. You do have to type in Saint. If you try to put ST, it's going to flag you. So that's literally the only one. Longitude, latitude, and that information. Okay, next, I was going to ask you information about your the project snapshot at application. You're going to want this does not check against your workbook, but clearly you want this to match your workbook as closely as possible. So I'm going to say I have 160 units. Is your project 100% permanent supportive housing? Nope. Will your project include homeless units? Do not meet the definition of HPH? No. Is your project at travel land? So please, obviously you're entering your information. This is clearly a hypothetical project. So for travel, no. Yes, sure is. Is your project eligible for a high housing infrastructure bond? Does your project include development and construction costs? You enter yes. Again, please match this to the other data that you're entering. It's not checking against it in real time. So enter that information, make sure that matches. I'm going to hit next. Project sponsor. Information. Be careful. Obviously, this is a web-based application, so it will remember if you're using a Chrome or anything like that. So if you do go here and choose things, you're obviously going to fill information. Please verify if you enter that. Just verify the information is accurate. Anything that's defaulted in there. And so then, is your project sponsored by tribal government? Yes or no? Yes. So now it's going to ask you some information that you now don't necessarily have. So developer details. It's going to ask you if you have the developer. If yes, you have to answer that information. If not, click no, and you're not going to have to. Click next. You have a processing agent. Do. Information, first name. If you go and choose, for instance, if you go back, just a heads up, if you go back and choose no, it's going to hide that information. But if you do yes, switch it back, it's going to save that information. But once you've navigated away from a page and come back, it will clear that data. So if you did this and you go to no, if you hit next and then you go back to that page, that data will be gone. But it will save that as long as you're still on that page. So we're going to say no here. Hit next. So now review all the information that you entered. If anything is wrong, just hit previous. You can modify that information and come back to this page. Once you're done, you say, yep, everything looks good. I'm going to create a project. I'll do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So like I said, the test environment production is faster than that. I put that use delay. So now that your project's been created, one of the features we've added is the ability to add team members. But this does not automatically add the team member to your project and give them access. It's a request to do so. So if you want to add people, you can do this now or you can do this later. I will show you. If you want to add team members, you're going to come here, add here. Add their company name, add their email, and then what you're going to want to do is identify the role they're going to play. So say that's a processing agent, and then you're going to want to say, do they want read or write access? Again, you're not actually giving them access, it's just a request. If you have any comments, you can add it there. You can either do save and new, so if you want more, or you can just save from here. And if you wanted to, you can come here, add another team member. If you made a mistake, you can edit this one or you can delete it. And that's just on the wizard. You can do this later too. So once you're done, so I'm just going to add Jane to mine. So finished. Oh, so you can do finish, add another project, or you can just do finish and then you go to you go right to that project. So I'm just going to cancel out of there. And now here. And here's the project that I created. So as you can see, in Chatter, that gives you the tabs. Here's your characteristics. This is how you create your checklist. So I'm not going to go through that process, but you select the characteristics related to your project, which will then create the checklist items needed for your application checklist. Documents, if any documents being shared with you, this will be done at this point. And here's requested team access. So as you see, Jane is here. Right now, you'll see the status change. So once that's completed, that request by our staff, you'll see that that is completed, and they'll be added to your team, which you'll see once you're selected or not. Or once if you are selected, you see another team tab here, which you don't see now. So once you've done that, review, make sure the information is accurate. We're going to go in and we're going to do the scoring. So you're going to hit the button, scoring wizard, like I talked about. Here is the legal disclaimer. Please review that information. If you agree to it, hit accept. If not, you're going to hit decline. It's just going to send you back to your project. You can come back and accept it later. So once you've reviewed it, we're going to accept it. So on this page, you're going to give all the, they're going to give you all the options. So if you do have an existing score sheet, you'll see a panel here, and I'll show you that later, of how you can launch existing score sheets. But since this is the first time, it gives you options of creating new ones. I can either create a test or a final. Don't worry which one you choose, because you can change this. The only difference is you can only create one final version. So if I created a final version, it wouldn't let me create another one. But if I take a test, I can change that to a final version. So we're going to do a test scenario. And I will walk through the scoring wizard. So first, please describe the scenario. Since this is a test scenario, I'm going to say that's 4% only with deferred, for instance. You're creating one total for the project. So as you can see, I could change this right here, final to test scenario, if you wanted to. You can switch it back. You can only submit a final version, as I said. So a couple different questions. Where's your project located? This does drive some of the other questions that you see. So in the score sheet now, in the past, you've seen all the questions. Now we're limiting them based off some of the selections you're making. I'm going to show you a couple different places. This is the first instance of that. So there are questions for a minimum threshold that are based off of whether or not you're rural, right? So if you're in Minneapolis-St. Paul area, obviously rural does not apply to you, so it hides that question. So I'm going to choose Minneapolis-St. Paul. Very rare, but if your project has scattered site property, please identify that. It defaults to no. And even rarer, if you have project unacceptable practice points. I'm sure no one here on this call has any, but if you do, that's where you put that in as a negative number. So now, one of our denominators that we talked about, 20 units by size. So I'm just going to enter, so you want to do by bedroom size. So for ease, like I said, you want this to match. So I did put this when I was applying, it was 160 units. I'm going to make sure that this matches with that. Obviously, you can edit that if necessary. So make sure that matches all the places you've entered that. So hit save and next. One thing I want to mention, at the top of the page, there is instruction sections that you can hide or display. So if it did get lengthy, you can just hide that. To give you some of the information of where to go to look. Otherwise, you have self-scoring worksheet. You can download the scoring guide and download the scoring wizard guide. So basically what we're doing here today, you can download this now, and it's a guide for you. But that will be on the top of the very page. So if you have any issues, but it's nice, download that. That will give you a lot of the rules. We intentionally did not try to duplicate all the guide within the system, just because there's so much verbiage, so many words in that guide. It would make this too complex, and just please refer to the guide as you go through here. Okay, so assisted units, we talked about this. What I like to do. So if I tried to enter, I entered 20 units on a total. So if I try to enter more than that, it's going to flag me. At least I can enter less. We're going to just say 20. Like I said, it's not based off total units, it's based off unit size. Not everything is based off of unit size, bedroom size. preferences. Will your project have an eventual tenant ownership component? Yes. Was your project determined by Minnesota Housing through the pre-application process to be eligible for the innovative construction techniques component? If I choose yes, then I'm going to at least choose one preference. So I'm going to say reduce the total construction cost by at least 10%. By doing that, I clear that error. Deeper rent targeting. So if your project includes project-based rental assistance for 100% of the units, I chose no, but say it did. If it does, then I'm not going to have to meet that minimum. If I choose no, then I'm going to have to at least have 2% of total units meet the county 30% MTSP rent limit, and at least 3% meet the HAP payment standard. So as you can see, if you enter information here, you can enter that. So if I said 220, as you see on the right here, you can see that obviously it's more. But for best purposes, I'm going to show you what happens when I don't need it. Down here, like I talked about, project location, based off that, is determined which options I have. So, are you applying for 9% tax credits in round one? If you're not, you're going to, all those questions are going to be hidden because you don't need to meet those minimum thresholds. If you chose yes, then you're going to at least need to meet one of these. So I'm going to, so you're going to have to at least create one of them. So I'm going to, again, if you don't choose any and you try to hit save next, it's going to flag both of those. So first off, minimum threshold I did not meet, and the number of units for deeper rent targeting did not meet. So if I go back to change values, I update this, make sure I meet the, as I can see, meet the minimum, and at least meet one of these, save the next, and voila, I'm past that page. So here's some more information here. As you can see, sometimes it's a little bit more lengthy. This is probably the longest one up in the instruction page, so if it gets in the way, please just hide that. But one thing you want to know, large family housing is automatically calculated by what was put in the assisted units grid. So you're not going to see that question specifically, but you will see those points being calculated. And once I fill up this page, I'll show you what that looks like. So there's a couple questions here. It looks smaller, but this is the greatest need tenant targeting page. So if you choose seniors 55 plus, it's going to give you questions about seniors 55 plus. If you're not applying for that, then it's going to hide it, but then give you some other questions. So now I'm going to say, nope, it's not senior housing. Does your project meet the high priority homeless threshold? Yes. If so, it's going to ask you some questions. So I'm going to say that I'm due for children serve 80 units. And it's going to give a question, continual care. This was related to that. If you chose no, it would be gone. So I'm going to say yes. Children. So if this can't, I'm going to show you another error that's going to happen, another cross question validation. So I've entered 100. So it did allow me to do it there, but it will flag it that you cannot choose more units here than you can in this grid and the HPH grid. I'll show you how that works. My project meets the people with disabilities threshold. So these threshold questions drive a lot of the other questions. And these next two tabs are the most complex when it comes to that. It gets actually easier as you go along. But does it meet the people with disabilities threshold? It does. And it's going to ask another question. Did you submit pre-app for 811? I did. So, and that's the case. Here's the infill validation that occurs. If you try to enter more than 11, that is the max. It's going to flag that. But in addition to this, if you're taking this in HPH, it's going to do another flag, which is the example I used in the PowerPoint. So if I do choose this, and I hit save and next, it's going to capture any of those cross-question validations. So continual care units exceed HPH, and HPH and PWD units too high. So I'm going to go back and check and see how I made a mistake. Oh, this can't be any more than this. And a combination of, if I'm choosing PWD 11 units, I can't have any more than 25% between HPH and the section. So I'm just going to change it to yes, ineligible. Now, it looks like it didn't change, but this is actually a different question of people using PWD, not using age 11. And this does not have the same requirement. So in that case, if I do have 11, so again, I'm not giving you any advice on how you can apply. That is not my job. I'm just showing you how it works. So please refer to the guide for any of the rules regarding this, or ask questions at the end. So once I've done that, hit save and next. So as you can see, you're not seeing points in real time on the same page, but if you wanted to, at any time, you can go to your claim points page, and you can see how your points were awarded so far. So there's a section. I've only gone through greatest need tenant targeting, so are the only points I should see thus far. So greatest need tenant targeting, as you can see, I got large family housing, and extended large family housing, HPH, continuing care, people with disabilities, and you can see the points. Please refer to the guide of how you're getting those points. It does tell you where the data is coming from, so data used. So refer to this to understand how you update that, because you can go back and change that. So greatest need tenant targeting units grid, and the total units grid, and the selection for restricted to a particular age group. So that is how you're going to go back and make those necessary changes to see how your points are affected. And like I said, if you, for instance, did not want to take large family housing, all you have to do is take that, and you can see your total points available are 54, but you're only claiming 39. But we're going to take all the points we can get. So now, the best thing to do is go back to where you were at. So we are on the service lowest income. We're going to go back to that page. You can go to the other tabs, which is fine, but to follow the process is obviously the best way to capture all of the rules, but it will capture any of those validation errors. So service lowest income, preservation. So does your project, what preservation threshold does your project meet? So if you choose risk of loss due to market conversion, it's going to be more options. So you can choose federal assistance tier 1. It's going to say enter the number of existing federally assisted units. If you choose existing federal assistance tier 2, it's going to give you a question for enter the number of units with rents and incomes restricted at or below 50% MTSB. So same thing with critical affordable units risk of loss. If you choose applicable, all the way. So I'm going to say tier 2. I'm going to enter at least 50%. I'm going to enter again, go back to your guide, refer to your guide. Rental assistance, so enter the number of rental assistance units. Service lowest income, tenant rent reduction. One of the things it does is it tells you what the denominator is, so that's going to tell you what the max is going to be, of what you can enter as far as the system. It doesn't, if there are other rules in place, please refer to the guide to make sure that you're adhering to that, but this will not allow you to at least enter more information. It doesn't do cross unit, so if you can't claim the same priority on the same unit, this is not going to capture that unless you exceed the total number. So that's something you're going to have to refer to in your guide. So again, this is very hypothetical. Put in my information. Do you agree to extend the long-term affordability? If so, please select the number of years. So I will say, yep, 50 years. Save and next. And again, if I wanted to go back to claim points and see how I got the points, I could do that. But otherwise, I'm just going to continue to go through the pages. So now on the geographic choice and supporting community and economic development page. So one of the things is the way you're going to get this information is by going to our community profiles page, which is our GIS map. So you can launch that right from here. It's going to open up in another window. So hit OK. And so now there's a couple different ways. You can do a find address by place, or you can select. So I'm just going to randomly select a location. So what you'll see here is you're going to see the number of points. So points breakdown. And so you're going to enter this information into the wizard. for rural housing, workforce housing, transit, rural tribal clients. So if you have two screens, that's the easiest. Obviously, I'm doing on one. You just take the information, the 860004, and you're going to enter that information here. So first one, 8. Second one is 6. That actually worked out well because there are two different sections. So please refer to the guide to know which value or why you're getting that value, because there are two different 6s. So if it's top job center or net 5-year growth community or individual employer growth community. So I'm going to say I'll refer to my guide, and it's that one. Access to transit, 0, rural tribal, QCT, 0, and what's your multifamily work history? That's 4. It's been a while since I got money in that area. Next part of this is your walk score. So again, this is not, you're not calculating a point, you're going to put the raw score of your walk score. So you go to the walk score, launch. That's not a, I'm going to put in the address, determine what my walk score is. 72, very walkable. So I'm going to take that data, and you're going to enter that here. So this won't allow you to go above 100, so 0 to 100 here. So enter that in there, and it's going to calculate your points later. Does your project contribute to that? So in this section, supporting community and economic development, does your project contribute to the active implementation of a community development initiative? Yes, it sure does. Does your project provide equitable development? Yes. Does your project team include and or partner with any Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned, women-owned business enterprises? Just rolls right off the tongue. You're going to choose that. Obviously, if it's not, you're going to choose not applicable, but I'm going to say, yep, 2 or more entities with partnership. So now let's go to the next page. So now you see here this says, please make sure that the values entered on the screen match your workbook. Again, it doesn't check it. It's just the internal staff will check that. But please just make sure that information matches. So I'm going to say 2.5 million. So now, based off that, so that basically creates your denominator, and then how much capital funding has been secured, awarded, or committed for your project. As you can see in real time, percentage of total cost based off of this value. If you change this, it's going to change that. So other contributions for your project, 2%, and what are the intermediary costs for your project. So what you can't do is enter more than what is entered, but it doesn't check across because these don't just equal 100 or anything like that. So it will flag to make sure you don't put anything more than here, but it does not do cross-checking. That's just for you to make sure that that information is accurate. So now that verified that information looks right, hit save and next. Now we're on the building characteristics tab. So there's 3 questions here. It expands as you choose something. So does your project meet universal design criteria? If it does, it's going to ask you another question. Choose the appropriate response to the statement. My project has. So does your building have an elevator? Buildings have an elevator. Do you have buildings without an elevator, or do you have a combination of the two, which is fairly rare, but that can happen. So if you choose buildings with an elevator, it's going to ask you 2 questions. Enter the number of assisted units in buildings with an elevator. Enter your help text if you want to see. It's going to launch a window if you want to know what that means. If you choose buildings without an elevator, it's going to say enter the number of assisted units in buildings without an elevator, and then also enter the number of assisted units in buildings without an elevator, meeting the definition of universal design. And obviously, if you choose buildings with and without, it's going to give you a set of both questions. Like I talked about earlier. So if you choose, this has a lot of, this isn't going to allow you to choose anything more than what you have. So I just know that this has to be 100%. And So if I went out, 100 there, 60 here, and then of these, there's 20. If I didn't enter the right information, it's going to flag me. If I enter too many units, it's going to flag me. So very helpful. I mean, there's if I try to enter this, and I'll show you what happens when I try to go to the next page. Does your project meet the standards for your buildings? Yes. What tier does your project need for enhanced sustainability? Tiers 1 and 3. So if I go to try to do one next, give me a bunch of flags. So the sum of assisted units in buildings with and without elevators may not exceed the total assisted units. So I do that, and then basically saying I'm entering too many units. So I correct that information. Oh, this is based off assisted units. So its total is 100. So that, once I've done that, because I have 100 assisted units. So once I've done that, I've gone through, and now I'm seeing all my points. So if I go to building characteristics, I can see that I receive points here. If I don't want to take universal design, I can say no, even though I qualified for it. You can see efficient use of scarce resources. If you're not seeing the points that you got, please refer back to the guide, and then go to that page and make the necessary updates. So if I had any errors here, if I missed any data, you would see that across the top here. I didn't miss anything. And now I've entered it, it shouldn't have any validation errors. So now I'm going to show you, if I went back and made a change to the Scoresheet setup page, and say I change a value here. So if I hit save and next, which is what we recommend you do, it's going to check against all those places where this gets affected. So any place where I have total units is going to be affected. Any place that I said I had more, if I had any units in 4-bedroom, like assisted units, it's going to flag that. If I go to this page, make a change, if I go all the way back to the claim page, claim points page, it's going to capture those errors. So this is fairly small, but if I were to hit those maxes, it would flag me in all those areas. So what we do recommend is if you do make that change, because there can be a lot of downstream effects, just go back to the page where you got. So if you're going to change something here, hit save and next, and then on this page, it's going to prompt. So then as you go through, anywhere that was affected, it'll flag you. So I only had one error. So if I go back to, or if I go through, I would either navigate through the save and next. It's going to check for all those errors, have me fix them in real time, and then when I get to the claim points, that will be done. So now I'm on this page. I can do save and review. Every time you're going from one page to the next, you are saving that data. If you go up here, like a web app is, if you X out of there, anything that's not saved will be lost. But if you navigate through 8 pages of the wizard, and you enter some information on the final page, but don't hit save and next, you X out, you're only going to lose that last page. So if you go back in, you can add that data. So please just use the save and close button, not this X up here. There's nothing we can do about hiding that or disabling it. It's how web apps work. So this page is all the data that you entered. So you can go through total units, assisted units, preferences. This is something that you can review to make sure that all the data is accurate. You can also create a PDF from this page. So pretty simply, a PDF. And it's pretty WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So anything that's on this page is going to create that PDF. So here's your summary report. This can be emailed out. Any changes that are made will be reflected on here and when you create the PDF. So since I created the test scenario, the only thing I can do is verify this. So if I hit verify only, it's going to check across, make sure that no data is missing, that all my rules have been followed. It doesn't guarantee you your points. I can't guarantee that, but it will at least verify that the data you entered is accurate and doesn't break any rules that we know about. With a nice little verification successful. So again, I didn't have the to validate and submit because it is not a final version. So in order to do that, what you want to do is you want to go back to Scoresheet setup. I'll show you a couple of other features. You can change it here, and then you can go through, or if you wanted to, that's where you change the page to make it the final version. So once you go to save the next, you review and report. You're going to verify and submit. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but I'm going to first show you how you can create a copy. So once you've created that, obviously it took some time. I'm making up data as I went along. You're actually looking and researching, so it obviously takes more time. So if you want to create a different version, you go back, choose different versions of the Scoresheet. And now that I've created one, I now have more options. So now I have, you can see, select existing. So a couple things I can do here. If you want, you can delete it. If you delete it, everything is gone. If we were uploading files to this, it would at least say you're going to delete all the data in the files related to this. So please know if you do that, you have to start over from scratch. One nice thing here, you can also clone. So if you choose that, you can clone that Scoresheet. Just create copy on here, but to say your new one's going to be 4%. Sorry, 9%. So I saved that. Now if I've gone back, so it's already saved, and it's an exact copy, a carbon copy of what I had. So you'll see all the points are exactly the same. So now if I went through, open that selected one, income, and say I made a change to this. Presumably I should change my points, but then I would see any of the differences if it affected my points. I'd go to that review page. As you can see, based off that change, I have different point values. You can make a copy of this one if you wanted to. So if I wanted to create another copy, I could do that. So not present only with deferred, I could say with linear first mortgage. So, and then I can make slight modifications to that. I can keep doing this until I have 4, and then, but I can still create a new test scenario and create a final version. Once I've maxed out though, I'm just going to show you, once I've created another clone, I go back to choose different Scoresheet. I don't have the option of creating a new one. If I want to do that, I'm going to have to delete this existing one. So I have to delete. Yes, I want to delete that. And that is now gone, but now I have the option to create a test and final. So now that I've done that, and I've created the final version, and it's ready to go, I'm going to open that. And you're going to want to submit it. So the deadline. So you'll see the submission due dates here. You're going to go to review and report. We always suggest that you go through and verify all the information is accurate. I'm going to come here, review this. Yep, everything looks good. So I can do verify only, like I said, but now I can do verify and submit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the same thing the verify only did. And it's going to give me that same validation message. Rest assured, if you do submit this and you need to make changes, just email us. It goes to our staff. They can unlock it for you, and you can make all the changes. So once you're ready, yes, submit. It'll tell you that you've done that, and then it will also give you another message saying just reach out to mhfa.app.state.mn.us, and someone can unlock that for you. So please, at least you want to go through and make sure you verify information. If you get to the end and you try to submit it just before the deadline, you hit a bunch of errors and it starts flagging things, make sure you've gone to do that and make sure that everything looks right. So you want to, so now that we've submitted it, it's been updated status is submitted, you can still create test scenarios, you can still play around. It's only going to give you a test, you cannot create any final. But if you want to come in there, the only difference now, so the rest will look exactly the same and you can change points. On this one, the final version I submitted, this is all you're going to see. You're only going to see the final PDF that you can, the only things you can do here are print a PDF, save and close. But if you did go through and go to a different one, you still have the clone, delete, open, and it gives you the same option as you had before. So once that's done, your score sheet has been submitted. Again, that has to be done prior to deadline in addition to your application checklist being submitted. So two different things. So on that, I will turn that back to Katie and open it up for any questions that people have.
Thank you, Chris. I am not seeing any questions in the chat box, which is great. That means you did an excellent job, Chris, going over everything.
Nailed it.
Yes. I do want to just give a couple of reminders real quick. So applicants, so when you're filling out the self-scoring worksheet, even if you're doing a dual application this year, there will only be one score sheet submitted at the end. So that is different from previous years. In previous years, we had multiple score sheets, and that is not the case anymore. So it will be one per project, regardless of if it's a dual application. And then the other thing I want to make sure that we're highlighting is that you will need to submit this self-scoring worksheet, the final version, by that noon deadline, and submit your checklist in Portal by that noon deadline. So want to make sure folks know that there will be two places that you'll need to hit submit by that July noon deadline for the final application. So those are the two big things that I wanted to mention. We've been getting questions on those, so I think it never hurts to say that multiple times to help everybody know how things are different this year. But any other things, Chris, that you want to mention? Otherwise, thank you so much, everybody, for participating.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And please reach out that if you have any questions, reach out to that email address, mhfa.app. We get a lot of questions, and we really want to help you through this process. It is brand new, so there's always the potentials for issues. We haven't seen anything thus far, but the nice thing about being a portal app or a web app versus an Excel worksheet, any changes that we had to make in the past, so if anything was found that could be an error or it had to make an update, we had to fix that and send that out to everyone, and they had to re-enter their data onto that new Excel worksheet, which was not fun for anyone. We know that in this new system, we're able to make any changes in real time, assuming that they're not humongous things. So we did a lot of extensive testing on this. We reached out to a lot of external folks to just get their feedback. So overall, I think the feedback is really good, but please, as you're going through here, if you have any thoughts or questions, please reach out. If you have some ideas, we're here to make things better for you. That's what we want to do. So please provide feedback. Well, I'm sure there'll be a survey, and the more you can give back to us, the more you can provide to us, the better we can make the experience for you. That's ultimately what we want. So thank you for joining. If you have any questions, you know where to reach out to. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Friday, and have a great weekend.